come sit with me, and I'd like to just chat with you for a few minutes about why video games are awesome. I love video games. I've always loved video games. This is the oldest photo I could find of me playing a video game, probably Boxing Day, Christmas Day maybe, playing Chuck Rock on our Archimedes A3000, if any of you remember such a computer. But this isn't the first computer I had, and by no means the first game I played. I grew up with a BBC Micro, later a BBC Master, playing games like Chucky Egg or Daredevil Dennis. These games were really hard, and they had very simple graphics, but just somehow something about them really captured my childhood imagination. Up here in the top right is the first game that I was ever utterly obsessed with. This is called Exile. You have this little guy with a jetpack. Minimal kind of story or introduction. This guy just shows up, teleports in, steals your ship's engine, and then disappears, and then you're left to your own devices. I spent ages getting nowhere, thinking this little round thing was a football that you could kind of kick around, and it was only much later on that I discovered it was a grenade that you could pick up, and you used it to blast open the doors. And this is an amazing achievement, this game. I think a floppy disk in those days could have a maximum of like 800 kilobytes, so they didn't have enough space to like store really detailed maps or sound effects or anything, so it used some clever algorithm to generate this massive complex world. And it was this full-blown kind of physics simulation. You know, here you are with your jetpack, you've got these sort of wind tunnels, you've got these robots chasing you, shooting at you. Just amazing. And of course, you know, I could barely get beyond the first kind of bit without some kind of guidance. One of my best memories, I remember my cousin coming around, and he'd completed the game, and he just basically played it for me. And it was so cool to see him getting to the end. And I poured many hours into this, made my friends join in too. Bit later on, when I had a PC, I fell in love with Monkey Island. This is mostly from the first game, Secret of Monkey Island. This is what you call a point and click adventure game. So you've got all these verbs, you could pick things up, push, pull, open doors, talk to people. And it had this amazing sort of setting. You're Guybrush Threepwood, you want to be a pirate. And, you know, step one, you have to solve the 3 quests to become a pirate. You have to steal something, and you have to find some buried treasure, and you have to defeat the Swordmaster. And it kind of runs from there. But just something, that amazing kind of imagination-inspiring setting that, like, of course we all wanted to be a pirate back in those days. It's so much more than just a game, really. It was a whole kind of obsession for weeks on end. I played it together with a friend. We'd go around each other's houses, try and kind of figure out the next little bit of the game and how to solve this. And if you got stuck for a bit, there was no internet to go and look up what's the answer. You know, you just had to stick it out and persevere. We loved getting through that. Had a few sequels. A few years later, slightly more advanced graphics, and the big innovation here is you suddenly had voices, like voice actors. Day of the Tentacle.
But now I know that I must go back to the mansion.
You play these 3 characters in these time-travelling toilets, and one of you's in the present day, one of you stuck 200 years in the past, one of you stuck 200 years in the future. Really, really funny, hilarious kind of puzzles and solutions and things. Very clever the way you manipulate time to sort of change circumstances for the other characters. But interestingly, like 200 years in the past, you meet these, like the founding fathers of the USA, George Washington, is it John Hancock, and one of the other guys.
Oh, you're like George Washington. Very much like him, according to my wife, Mrs. Washington.
I knew nothing about American history as a teenager, so it was really interesting playing this game. And yes, it's obviously nonsense, a lot of it. You wouldn't want to sort of base your entire sort of understanding of American history on Day of the Tentacle. But it did introduce me to these characters, to these concepts. And when I later went to America, I went to Virginia, and is it Fredericksburg, where these guys were based initially, and you could actually read the real history of these characters. And it, because I played that game as a kid, it made me really kind of much more engaged in finding out about those characters and what they were like in real life. So that just, yeah, I don't know, it was a bit of fun at the time, but it's just interesting how it also introduced me to real life events and things. I must confess, this one again, really, really hard. So would I have figured out any of those puzzles on my own? I actually don't know. I had a magazine in those days, PC, whatever it was, PC magazine, and it would have the walkthrough, and I just really enjoyed doing it. But something about it's different from a movie because you are engaged. You are the one doing the things, and you know, if you want to spend half an hour talking to George Washington, you can. But equally, you could just as well rush through it and skip all of that stuff. So games are great for giving you the freedom to explore at your own pace and go deeper if you want, but you don't have to. I want to tell you, video games are a work of art. Anyone who says otherwise, I just have to disagree with you. So many video games are utterly beautiful. Here's one that I loved back in 2011, the Superbrothers Sword and Sworcery EP. Every shot just looks stunning. They've taken this sort of quite simple pixel art, very kind of almost monochromatic kind of colour schemes. Each scene has a very limited colour palette, but then they'd also added these little subtle additions to using the modern technology. So you kind of have these elements that are not pixelated in quite the same way, and it creates this really beautiful effect. Plus the music, absolutely incredible soundtrack by Jim Guthrie, and video games, they bring together so many disciplines like that. You've got cutting edge graphics. Some of the smartest coders on the planet have put their minds to work inventing the sort of cutting edge video games, like Wolfenstein 3D when it was new. Just groundbreaking how they managed to get that level of performance out of the PCs available at the time. And then they did it again with Doom and Quake. Even simple things like, how does this character, when you click over here, the character needs to sort of find a route from A to B, but walking around the obstacles. I had so much fun as a teenager figuring out some of those algorithms and trying to implement them. You've got technology skills, you've got art, you've got music, all that kind of, so much goes into games to make them easy to play. You've got to get players from A to B without having to hold their hand at every little stage. There's an incredible kind of, I think games require even clearer user experience design than apps do. Here's another game. I mean, tell me that's not a work of art. This is Planet of Lana and Planet of Lana 2. Absolutely beautiful games that come out in the last couple of years. Really kind of just gorgeous to look at. These guys tell their story so beautifully there's no kind of English words. They've invented a bit of a language for their alien planet, but you basically are left to piece the story together, just me and my son, who's 9, both love these games, and that kind of trying to figure out what's going on, what is the story, what's the backstory, where have these people come from, why are the aliens here, or the robots here, really kind of it just really draws you in, and an experience that stuck with us long after the game itself was finished. And video games also let us explore our emotions. There's such a range of games that really kind of, there's about so much more than just the gameplay. Here's games like Old Man's Journey, top left, or Gris. Games that explore loss and grief, and here's Florence. Again, a really kind of moving story. journey of a broken circle, bit of a kind of existential crisis. Who am I? Like that identity and meaning and purpose. And Roger, really interesting game from this last year, made by a Christian based in Japan, sort of exploring dementia and helping you kind of feel a bit about like what that might be like. I asked my son, has a game ever made you cry? And he immediately, without blinking, said Hollow Knight and its sequel Silksong. Games they're not just this sort of shallow, superficial, nerdy thing. They really have the power to make us feel things. Another game I've loved is Firewatch. This was a really interesting game because they did it. They built it on quite a small budget, I think, and they managed to tell this entire story without you ever really seeing another person at all. It's all kind of told. You're out in the mountains trying to get away from things. It's all done over this walkie-talkie with your colleague on another tower, and inevitably things aren't quite what they seem, and as it tends to go. But just really kind of, not super long, not super complicated, but just really, really cool experience. And able to sort of make you engage in a way that you just couldn't in other mediums, like a movie or a book, because with a game you are in that place. You're the one making the decisions, so you just experience the story in a very different way to some of those more passive mediums. An excellent book if you want to kind of read somebody else's experience about all this. I love reading this book, Extra Lives by Tom Bissell. He probably played a slightly different kind of game to a lot of the ones I've talked about. So he's probably a lot of the books mentioned in his book are more of the sort of AAA kind of really big budget games. You'll have noticed a lot of the games I've mentioned are those sort of smaller indie titles. Personally, I love the heart and soul behind an indie game where someone has taken the time to build this game. Sometimes just an individual or a small team. In my experience, that they often are doing it for more than just the profit, and so they have an incentive to build a really meaningful experience. But Tom Bissell in his book just really talks about how his personal experience of his games at different points in his life and how they resonated with him, and really fun read if you can get hold of it. I'd love to hear your reflections, your thoughts. What do you love about video games? What is it that you get from a game that you just can't get from anything else? What are some of your favourite memories of playing games? I'd love to hear your reflections. This is just my experience, but I'm sure yours will be different. So do let me know in the comments below. As a Christian, I believe that we are made in the image of God, who is himself the creator. And computer games give expression to all these amazing, talented people creating in the image of their own creator. And for sure, not all video games are equally amazing or emotionally rich. But I think that the fact that these games are able to give expression to such a wide range of emotions and help us process our feelings and our thoughts, and I just think is an amazing thing. Plus what I said about how David Tentacle helped plant that seed of interest in historical events, I think there's real potential there. Ultimately that's what led me to create games like The Serpent and the Seed, which I'll talk about in another video. But I think it's far too easy to write them off as just a waste of time without really understanding their potential and what makes them so great. And for sure there are questions to explore around addiction and where, how much time are we pouring into these things, and how do we balance that with our other responsibilities. But that can be true of so many things that are otherwise good, and it doesn't mean that we should sort of reject them outright or just dismiss them as just purely terrible. But I hope you can see from the things I've shared that video games are a really powerful, important work of art. I'd love them to be taken more seriously.